And you're live.
And welcome to Kindasound this morning. We're going to start off with a lovely little tune from Casey and the Sunshine Band because the sun is beaming through my window and I'm just waiting for my freshly washed guest to get out of the shower. So we'll be with you very shortly. Django, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Cool.
Morning, Ollie.
Good morning.
You utter lunatic.
Yeah. I've had a bit of practice at sort of like getting showered and in, but then I like for some reason opening emails on my laptop is just this arduous, lengthy task. I think I shut down a couple of the permissions that it had.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you don't want to share information. We're just going to make this the slowest possible process that we can.
That's all right. I couldn't believe I got your message at like 5:27. I'm just going to get in the shower. I was like, oh, Django. He's getting in the shower at 5 to 9 and we go live at 9. Right, let's put some music on. Give him a couple of extra minutes just in case.
I didn't sleep well last night at all. And I've been sleeping really well lately. But just last night, for some reason, I just was up until about 6.
I was asked the nerves and it. Seeing my gorgeous face on a Sunday morning.
That's it.
Oh dear, it's quite funny. I've apparently Mercury's been retrograde. I don't know much about. I did study astrology, but not enough of it. Apparently Mercury's been retrograde and Venus is coming out of something at the minute, which means that it's all been a bit hairy for a couple of months. So apparently things are going to get better.
Yeah, this is the consensus. My mother talks about this stuff all the time, and it's only recently that I started to listen because I started adding it, putting 2 and 2 together. When she mentions this to me, and then I thought to myself once, it's quite common that when she mentions this, things do start going a bit crazy.
Yeah, I had the same experience with my mother always telling me.
Yeah, I think I've had a week, not a week from hell, really massive over exaggeration. But like a week of emotions,
1 minute to go.
Knackered. Do you know what I mean? Like absolutely poleaxed. And I just can't. It's like I can't get, no matter what I do, can't get any not energy. It's more just we're going to keep going to sleep. And then my friend said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just this one's gone that way and that one's going that way, and it'll all stop next week. You're fine when." Like, oh, okay.
Look, apparently it's quite common for a lot of businessmen, and there's a lot of people who take this quite seriously. They won't do business deals at certain times of year, or if Mercury's in retrograde or something like that. They're quite religious almost about it. Yeah,
I should really dip back into it. I quite enjoyed learning bits of it, doing charts, and then I didn't do anything with it. And if you don't do anything with it, you forget it, don't you? So
this is it.
Okay, guys, I just realized I was still on video. Of all the days to forget to switch my video off.
That's all right. You'll be on YouTube for a while, Django. Nice.
I'm not
going to cut it out.
We're going on in like 10 seconds.
All right.
Famous now. There's no turning back.
Exactly. You look like you got some good sunshine there as well.
It's actually kind of stormy.
And you're live.
And good morning again for the second time, and welcome to Kindasound Radio this morning on the Reality Bites show with me, your host, Wendy Smith, and my guest, Ollie Vinnicombe. So how was that for pronunciation today?
Perfect.
Yeah, I
said it better myself.
I've got a 10 first thing on a Sunday morning. Woo, the day's going to be a good day, Ollie, today. So Ollie has been on the show before. And we were planning on talking about his dream and his vision for the future, but we never actually got there because we ended up talking about multiple different other subjects. So a little bit of actually what I'm going to do, Ollie, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you just give our listeners a little brief overview of life up to where we got to. And then we're gonna go into what I think is a really powerful subject this morning with what your actual dream and vision is. So can you give our listeners a little recap on your journey so far, please?
Honestly, I don't know where to start with it sometimes. Okay, so spent a while in England. Regarding my relationship to the educational system, I'll sort of use that as a directional point, I guess. Did very well in school up until I moved to Ireland. Now, I'm not saying our Irish school system was awful or anything like that, but it just, whether it was the teachers, the curriculum, lost a lot of faith in history, and there was also a two-teacher school, which meant there were more teachers. So I started becoming distanced from education in general. And from there into secondary school, started losing even more interest. And of course, then I started to misbehave as well. Found my vocation in being the class clown, which I wouldn't change for anything. Got kicked out of school eventually for not wearing a uniform, among other things. And I think I covered that I felt quite lucky that had happened. Moved to the UK. I stayed in Ireland for a while, worked on building sites from quite a young age. Started technically when I was about 11. And then ended up machine driving in Ireland. Then there was the recession in Ireland, and then there was just no work. There was virtually nothing. So eventually I moved to the UK and started working in restaurants because it was just sort of the quickest job I could get. You don't need a lot of experience. You can just walk into it and sort of followed that path for a while. Got quite big into it. Ended up moving into sort of management roles in some really nice places. And eventually I realized I enjoyed aspects of being a waiter that you can't really do. The more you move into management, those aspects would start to disappear. It's sort of more paperwork and numbers and stuff like that. And I enjoyed the interactive side of it. Also, the money was better often as a waiter than as a manager.
Because of the tips. If you're a good waiter, you get good tips normally.
Yeah, if you can turn a section over twice, you're doing very well, and also a degree of your income is cash.
Which is always nice.
Yeah, which I always declared.
Oh, obviously, yes.
And then, so yeah, once I'd been working in catering for a while, I got headhunted for a restaurant, and I had quite a bad experience there. So I just thought, right, I've had enough of this now, so I want to do something else. That's when I applied to university, managed to get into university, got my degree, and I think we got about as far as I don't know if I mentioned that I started working in finance. It was the natural progression after the degree, and then didn't enjoy that at all. Also, the experience of feeling like a sardine on your way in and out of London every day.
Yeah.
With just this insane commute, you're exhausted by the time you get to work. Mentally at least. And yeah, so then after that, I came out of that, and it was sort of like having to get jobs that would just make ends meet. So I just had to take pretty much whatever I could get. I moved to Folkestone after I had to leave Egham because just rent is extortionate in Egham, where I went to university.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have the student loan, I just couldn't do it. So I moved to Folkestone and worked in a couple of restaurants, ended up in sales, worked for British Telecoms for a while. That was horrific. Had my experience of telesales. Then I worked for a company called Saga as a salesperson for holidays. I actually really enjoyed that job because, you couldn't make any money. They just had this ridiculous structure for bonus. You just weren't going to make anything. And so I just used to speak to old people for quite a lot of my day. They'd be booking holidays, and people's teeth would fall out whilst they were talking to me because they were drinking too much champagne celebrating. It was fantastic. It really was. The conversations I had. So from there, I started looking. I wanted to travel, so I thought, what can I do whilst traveling? And what came up was I could teach. I mean, actually, I started working for an interviewing company, working from home, because I didn't like the politics of offices and so on. That was just driving me a bit crazy. So I started working from home with an interviewing company, very repetitive. It was nice, but it kind of balanced out the crazy making aspect because it was that repetitive, although I could work from home. So it was kind of an interesting, but then, yes, I just almost randomly got into teaching because it was just a job I could do whilst traveling. I thought I'll teach English in Asia, and it's something I can do whilst I'm moving from place to place. So started teaching. I was teaching for about 3 or 4 months and thought, right, I've saved a little money. I'm going to look into the traveling aspect because this was coming up to March of 2019.
Right, yeah.
So obviously we had our 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And so I was thinking, you know, I'll hold off on the plans just for now. And yeah. I think I mentioned as well how I started looking into common law and alternative views on things.
Yeah, that was one where we literally just started brushing the surface of everything, didn't we? Last time we spoke.
Yeah.
It is I think a lot of people, to be honest. I was talking to went out yesterday, a totally random subject this, went out yesterday to meet some people down the road who've got this group on Twatbook called Soul Tribe. And it's sort of like, I know, sorry, and it's I won't advertise them anyway. So this Soul Tribe that it's just meeting like-minded people, and it's really interesting. Like most people that I met, they were just all bumbling through life, doing the thing of, you know, you get your job, you've got your mortgage, you're going to get married, get your kids, and then all of a sudden the 2 weeks to flatten the curve thing happened. And a lot of them said, you know, we just went along with it, we just stuck a mask on, you know, we were social distancing, and then all of a sudden we thought, where's the dead people? And that was literally all of them that I spoke to. It was well, we weren't seeing bodies laying in the street, so you start thinking, what's going on here? And then that started unpicking, you know, their journey of the last 2 years to flatten the curve, basically.
Well, yeah, you know, I think a lot of people had that experience. I think I mentioned in the last one, for me, it was about a month and a half, 2 months in. I mean, I realized that it was completely nuts anyway, and I thought, this is a new one. Like, I've not seen this before. So I was very sort of alerted to the ridiculousness that was likely going to follow. And it was, I think the penny really dropped as to what we were facing when they came out with that model initially, and this is what put the whole world into lockdown, you know. What was his name? Ferguson? Was it Alex Ferguson?
Neil Ferguson. The wonderful man who gets all of his stats run based on a computer model.
He's known for it as well, and this is the thing, you know, he's known for being a horrendous computer modeler. Like, nobody works with him. And also connected to Imperial College, and you know, I think most of us already know why that's important.
Because of the large pay packets that go in that direction.
From a certain person who just happens to benefit financially massively from it, which is a complete coincidence, obviously. And then they came out and said, "Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, we made a mistake. It's actually this percentage of people that are going to die, not 5%." You know, and the percentage that they came out with was like, okay, just a quick Google here. Flu has this percentage, and the percentage you've just mentioned is lower than the flu. I mean, that's all the mathematics anybody needed, you know, and it wasn't complicated. And it's like anyone that and it was mostly the people that I'd been to university with, that I would say something to them like, "Don't you think that's weird?" And they would then give me a reply that would completely overcomplicate those very, very simple numbers that justified the madness, you know? And I'm thinking, like, honestly, I lost a lot of respect for a lot of people over that short space of time, you know? Or at least I didn't quite see them the same way after that. There's a few of them that I keep on my Facebook intentionally, just because, you know, they'll pipe up sometimes, and I'll be like, okay, here's this, and this, and these are all official documents, not crazy people on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know,
both of us this morning.
Yeah. And he'd never replied to me if I sent him something official and that disagreed with his numbers. He would just disappear, and then he'd pipe up again when he'd see a post that he thought he could maybe argue down, and it was just frustrating, you know. But I think, yeah, it kind of kicked a lot of stuff into place, because I started going a bit crazy at that point, you know. Just like, okay, I've read Agenda 21 now. I've you know, this is like, the plan is this, and everyone's like, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. It'll all be over in a couple of weeks, you know, or a couple of months. It'll all be finished." I'm like, no, it won't. Like, and it kind of ties in as well. I'm not going to get sidetracked again. I'm going to mention.
We're going to try, because we'll be on part 3 at this rate.
Yeah. And it's like this trucker thing. It's just trending so hugely at the moment, and I think a lot of people are now very skeptical, which evidently, you know, I mean, I think rightly so. But there's two aspects to it, because it makes you kind of joyless. Like if something happens that seems to be pushing in the opposite direction, you're thinking, yeah, but who's behind it? What are they up to? Like, this like something's going on here. And whilst we are dealing with the kind of opposition, you could say, where that degree of skepticism is probably warranted, at the same time, you end up with this just joyless existence of if anything good happens, you're just like, no, I'm not getting happy about that. You have a party, I'm not coming. There'll be a tsunami.
It's the distractions, isn't it? It's, I always think when something happens, I go, right, that's really interesting, but what's it a distraction away from? Because I want to know what's happened to Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew. They're more, I'm just like, hang on. Can everyone just rewind a few weeks? We will get back to the education system. But it's just, for me, it's a big distraction again. It's like, hello, has everybody forgotten what's been happening over here with these people, all these what they call elites? I hate the word. I call them globalist scum that are running everything, that are all involved in all of these paedophilia rings. Hang on, has everybody forgotten about these people? And now we're focused on this. And I love the fact that these trucks are going to shut down cities. I really do. But again, all the politicians have done a runner.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like, everyone's very excited about it. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because it is, there are aspects to it that obviously could be impactful. It makes people feel like they can actually do something. But then again, that's going to cause food shortages. So, I mean, I do believe that food shortages are definitely a part of the plan, or at least a weapon within the arsenal of the globalist parasites,
Yeah. And how do you create that? Well, I suppose this is one way of, it's been mildly, I'm not really pessimistic in life, but the last 2 years, I've grown a pessimistic side to myself, which has been very interesting.
Well, I try to be as positive as I can, but it's just like we're dealing with people, and their symbolism is almost entirely represented by a chessboard. Like, this is how they work. They're always trying to be 10, 15 to 150, 200 steps ahead. They've got contingency plans for their contingency plans. People who've been preparing for something for as long as our opposition do, or have, aren't just going to go, oh, they're not buying it. Oh, lads, throw in the towel. Never mind. We'll just call that off. They've walked into the room. It was David Icke that says this, and I'm not even sure about him. But he said they've walked into the room at this point, and the door shut behind them. So now it's like, this is all out. Like, this doesn't end until one side is no longer functional.
Yeah, I think. And it's getting people to sort of realize. Well, again, we're going to come back to the education thing, because it is all about indoctrination, isn't it? When it comes down to it, we always level back off into that space. So, first of all, Night Call. Why this song this morning?
It's actually from a film called Drive, and I just enjoyed the film, and I really found the track to be, I just found myself listening to it whenever I'd had a few drinks. That was just my go-to track for like a year.
Not on a Sunday morning. But Django, if you wouldn't mind, please, Night Call to start us off today.
Cool, you're off air.
Django is still there. Sometimes I worry, because I can't see him.
I don't have my usual control pad, so I'm pressing buttons and using my mouse as fast as I can.
He's
so
not at home.
Priority is to play the song and let you wait in silence and suspense.
Yeah, we're just sat here staring at the screen going, is Django still there, or are we going to have to the listeners? And I don't know this song, so I can't sing it.
It's not really a singing song, I don't think. Maybe you could, I guess.
It might be if we're drunk, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I've never been. Well, I used to sing a lot as a kid, but yeah. But no, I swear it's almost like I can feel Django going, oh, they're sidetracking again.
They're all on one again. Globalist scum. This one won't be able to go on YouTube. It will get Wendy's channel strike number 2.
Hopefully I turned it down with enough time there for it to not cause your channel any issues.
Oh, no,
it's more... Usually if it's like 30 seconds, it gets flagged, but that's what some people say. I think you can get caught for less.
Oh no,
So-
we're not talking about the music. We're talking about the subject matter again.
Oh, okay. Good luck.
One of my videos, when I put it up, I thought, oh, there's nothing on there that's any problem whatsoever. And it's what I've worked it out is what tags you put on a video. So now I tag it with all like fluffy bunnies and rainbows and stuff like that. If I'm gonna put tags on. But yeah, it was one of the Charlie videos. It went up and got taken down within like 3 hours. And I was like,
oh, right.
What was this thing someone they said don't talk about planting things?
oh. I did a Facebook Live last week that went totally wrong. I started talking, I've got a mind like a sewer, right? But it's one of my mates calls it conversations with me like innuendo bingo sometimes, right? I don't mean to. And I started off talking about like mindset, and if you want to get things going, think of it like planting. So you put a seed in the ground, and then the seed grows a shoot. And then the shoot turns into some wood. And at that point, a mate of mine put an aubergine emoji. And that just did me. It did me. So then the whole thing just ended up like this, like me laughing all the way through. Every other comment was a sexual innuendo. And it was just like, guys, I can't even talk about you trying to like grow anything now, because all I can... And he was just constantly putting comments it was just hysterical. So everything ended up about growing wood, basically, and getting a hodge. And it was even worse, like,
on a Sunday
I
morning.
got there, honestly, like, the shoot gets a hard sheaf around it. It was just, by the end of it, I was literally nearly crying. It was like, I'm really sorry about this today, guys. I'm going to go now. So just remember, everything takes time if you want to grow anything. Go down to the woods today. And that was it. That was the end of it. So, yeah, it just all went wrong. It went wrong within like a minute. And once I start, Ollie, I can't stop, if you know what I mean. Once it starts unpacking, it gets worse and worse and worse.
Oh, yeah. That's always how it happens. That's how your ribs get to hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And I start laughing at myself. And then that's it, we're done at that point. We're just done. There's nothing more. My brain can't even get anything structured behind it. You know what I mean? It just
30 seconds to go.
Yeah, it went downhill, and it was so he said to me, no.
I'm listening. I'm going to be one moment.
Gone, his video's gone. Tell me when we get down to like 10 seconds and go.
10 seconds.
I'm just staring at myself on the screen again.
That was the 10-second warning.
Oh, okay. And he's back.
Kindasound Radio, the station for a global community.
And you're live.
And welcome back to Kindasound this morning. Thank you for tuning in. And this is the Reality Bite Show with me, your host, Wendy Smith, and my lovely guest, Oliver Vinnicombe, today. So again, I'm getting pretty good with these pronunciations. So we've basically got to where we needed to get to, I think. So we've had a little speed run through of Ollie's story up to now. But the main thing that we wanted to talk about is the education system and what you're planning on doing with it. Because, you know, as we know, for the last probably 80 to 100 years, probably plus, it's been a bit of an indoctrination process where people are not taught to follow their creativity or follow their passions, or sort of decide what they want to do. You're pretty much told what you're going to remember to pass an exam and then go into, like you say, the sardine syndrome in a train, packed in, going to work, joyless existence, not getting anything really out of that environment. And you've got to do it for a long period of time in life as well, haven't you? So coming out of all of that then and doing the education, because obviously you didn't end up traveling, so you ended up educating kids online, didn't you?
Yeah, I ended up working crazy hours doing it, and it's one of the few jobs that I've had that to date I can honestly say that I don't dread starting work. And you found something that you kind of enjoy. It's like it's not work if you enjoy it. Yeah. And I'd find myself, I just wouldn't dread it, unless I was a bit hungover and I thought, what are the rules on teaching very young children whilst being still slightly drunk from the night before? But actually, it makes me more of a child myself. So, the classes tend to go a lot more smoothly, and you can have a bit of fun. And I think that's important as well. And I think that's where my sort of teaching style has come from. Generally, you can enjoy yourself and make the class interesting as long as, you're hitting the targets that you need to hit. But again, I don't really want to start like a target-based thing. I just want to mention as well, it's interesting. It's like every time we have this conversation, the aspect of what it is that I'm doing becomes much more broad. Like, what would I like to do with education? Well, so, I mean, there's a lot of ideas that I've got for that, but, initially this just kind of appeared, was born of, again, another accident. I created a Facebook page, a school, Ollie's English, because I needed to open a bank account that I could receive payments from Asia through.
Right.
And I started getting contacted by parents because my Facebook community, typically my Facebook would never ever mix with anyone from my schooling, like anything in the world of schooling with regard to me teaching English. So I wouldn't have other teachers from any of the schools. I wouldn't have any agents, certainly not children's parents, because my Facebook feed is not something that I would want them to necessarily know about. Because, things like, I don't believe in what's going on at the moment. I am not part of the medical cult, I think we can say,
Yep.
But it was interesting because I started getting contacted by the people that do see my newsfeed. And they were saying, well, actually, a lot of people have taken their children out of school recently, and rightly so. Just flat out, in the UK, public schools are no longer a safe place for kids. It's as simple as that. They're just not safe, There's and aspects of that, like you don't need, they trying to bring in, you don't need your parents' permission to do certain things. A friend of mine refers to it as to take the needle craft,
right,
which I think is a better word to use, because obviously otherwise you're going to get flagged. And a lot of people are starting to homeschool, and obviously homeschooling is not something that everybody can do because it can be quite pricey. You obviously, as well, if your children are particularly young and you have to go out and work, which is, I think, another aspect or tentacle of the system that is intentionally this way, it makes it virtually impossible as, say, a single parent, for you to homeschool, because you can't go and work if you've got to look after a 5 or 6 year old.
Yeah, it ties you in, doesn't it? Yeah,
exactly. So literally the only way that a person can do that is to go on benefits, for instance, and of course, if they do that, then the next thing you have to start jumping through hoops like a trained animal. What kind of toilet paper do you use? The kind of questions they ask you when you do these things, and I don't think that's necessarily a deterrent. I think what it is it's designed to make people malleable if they're prepared to go through that process, or if they have no choice in going through that process. And I think that the economic system, which is by design, because if you think about it, all of the resources that were here are still here. Nothing has gone anywhere. It is only reformulated in different forms and hoarded by certain small groups of people. So really, the economic system, again, is by design. I think these things hand in hand put people in positions where it's very difficult for them to take their kids out of school, which again is by design, because if it were easy, then half the population would do it, especially when confronted with situations like we're seeing now. So parents started contacting me, and they were saying things along the lines of, well, we've seen your posts. They know how I think and the way I look at things. And they're effectively just saying, well, we would like an English teacher, and somebody who is sort of a similar thinking would be ideal. And so this is where it sort of started from. And then, as I was saying, I think I mentioned this in the last class. I was messaging one of the parents, and she's been really helpful actually. And we've been bouncing things off each other, and that's effectively how this has grown. But again, it is still very early stages. Because I'm still trying to set up my schedule just to have a steady schedule, because the schools are shut down. But we both said at pretty much the same time, without having heard the other say it before we had made the message, that perhaps common law could be something to integrate into English, for instance, because it is tied in with English. There's 3 types of English: the legal English, the You know,
the Black's Law Dictionary type of legalese. Do you mean? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I know there's a lot of naysayers out there when it comes to this. You know, a lot. But the bottom line is there's, you know, and I'm not saying that if you do everything correctly that you will win the case. You know, technically you should, but there's a lot of kangaroo courts. There's a lot of judges that are not really working for us, if you know what I mean. So you know, it's not a guarantee. But what I'm saying is this: is that at the moment, you've got a lot of people out there. They get a letter from the council saying, "Oh, your council tax is going up," or you know, you might not have been in a property for a period of time, and then they get their paperwork incorrect. This has happened to me, and they say, "Oh, you owe us this much money." And like, hold on a minute, I wasn't living there, you know. And they're like, "No, this is what our records show." They don't even enter into a conversation about it. They're just like, "This is what our records show. Pay it, or we're going to send bailiffs to your house." And this is the attitude now that we're dealing with in England. I don't think people, because it's a bit like the frog in the pot and the boiling water. You know, the temperature goes up slowly. A lot of people are talking about their freedoms being taken away now, but what they don't realize is that this has happened a long time ago. You know?
Oh yeah, massively from when they went over to the fiat banking system.
Yeah,
I mean that and the pharmaceutical model coming in. I mean, you know, but prior to that as well, it was like you said, it was a slow boil, wasn't it? Bringing it in, so people weren't really aware of what's happening, and it's always been told, "Well, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is going to save you. This is going to make you better. This is going to make you more free." This is, you know, when literally it was doing the opposite.
Well, that's it. You know, it's a bit like, you know, the devil hands you a contract, always read the small print kind of thing. You know, when the EU came in, it was, oh, it's fantastic. It was free travel for everyone. You know, you don't need this, you don't need that. And it's going to be great. And all of the countries, their tourism went through the roof. Everybody was, you know, taking home much more money than they were before. But what, you know, and it's like, well, when something like that is offered to you, you look for the horns and the person that's handing you the piece of paper to sign. Because it's like, it could have been done without the small print. This is the thing, you know. So all of these things, we're agreeing to these things as a collective, unfortunately, because a lot of people have been through this system, and I do believe that that's what the system is designed for. It seems as though these parasites are playing by a set of rules, where to some extent they have to inform you of what they're doing. And the thing is, really, if you look hard enough, most people are agreeing to this stuff. They are actually agreeing to it, you know. And
well, it's the whole thing of this is what you're saying about, you know, learning the legalese language and learning about common law, because they stand in two different camps, and I think this is where people get very confused. So they try and use all the common law stuff in the admiralty courts. So in our, you know, in the legalese legal system, it doesn't work because they're two separate entities. They cover two different aspects of the self. And the legalese stuff, I always look at it like this, Ollie. I don't know how you see it, but I always say to people, you've got this giant game of chess going on. You know, we go through the education system because we're taught to stay in our head, not connect to our body for a start anyway. But when you come through that system, you're only taught probably 1% of the rules of that game of chess. So you then go into the system and you're doing stuff and you don't know any of these other rules. But the whole game of chess, all the rules are the same for every single person playing it. It's only that some people know more of the rules or all of the rules, and some people only know a couple of the rules. But the game of chess is the same. So, and that whole legal system is built to support the globalist scum, basically, to give them a get out clause for absolutely everything. So for me, you know, like you say, the 2 years of unpacking, what it's done is I've gone into legislation. And I've wanted to know, you know, what is this legalese all about, and this legal system, how does it differ from law? And there's massive differences, but when you understand the language, and it's all based on language and contracts, that legal side of it it's all contracts. You've got to say yes to it for it to actually apply to you. And if you take it to I have a friend who's done this with the council tax. It ended up in court, but she was doing it all properly through questions, asking as king, asking, yeah. And that's all she was doing, was holding dialogue and asking questions. Give me the answers. Give me the answers to why.
Conditional acceptance, basically.
Basically, and when it ended up in court, the judge literally turned around and said, "Sorry, counsel, you haven't got a leg to stand on. You've not answered any of her questions, so she doesn't have to pay you anything."
Well, this is a very important point, because one thing about the truther community, and I'm very careful to say truther and not woke, maybe awake. is that if they would argue with each other less. Do you know what I mean? Like, because when I start looking into these videos, and I mean, there's a guy called Michael Labernica. I started listening to him initially, but a lot of people say that what he talks about doesn't work. Now, there are aspects, I think, of what he talks about that perhaps do work. But then there's, for instance, there's the barons that talk about Article 61. And a lot of these pages now I see, and it's just arguing. It's just people saying it doesn't work, and they're like, "Oh yes, it does," and on and on and on, and Magna Carta and so on. But I think almost all of these things have their place, you know, to some extent. Now, obviously, the foundation is contract law. It is commercial law. And I think the chap, what's his name, Jordan Maxwell, is pretty good with that sort of stuff. You know, he's pretty good at explaining broadly what it means and so on. But there's my mentality is this: it's not I have to be in one camp or another. I either believe that this style works or this style works. If it works, it works. If you go to court and and case law comes out the other end of it that says that this is correct, that you know that you're in the right, then it works. This is what we need to learn, you know. And and there's a few people I think I've been following. There's one guy, and I won't go into it's relatively complicated. It's to do with postal routes. Everywhere in the UK, for instance, is a postal route. I don't know if I told you about this.
No, I just know I've got a friend who's spoken to me about the Postmaster Generals and what goes on the plane of existence, and we're not governed by who you think we're governed by. This is the other thing when you get into this stuff, and it's like, oh no, now I've got cognitive dissonance again. Lovely. my head now hurts. Thank you for that information.
A 3-day headache, wonderful. But it was so, and I saw a really interesting video a little while ago, and the guy was talking about how he put a stamp on his driving license. Yeah. And this means effectively that if the police want to say you don't have what you need, they have to prove that you're not a postman on a postal route. And because of the fact that that's a form of identification, but it's not in the state that they would like to see it, there's a lot of technicalities as to why. But this guy's gone to court with this a couple of times, and they haven't. Again, the judges said you can't prove it's not a postal route, so you can't prosecute him. You know, this is you just can't do it. So he's winning cases like this. This is, I think, a much more effective way of pushing back than getting pissed in London and listening to music and shouting at police. Which, when we look at it, like some of them, yeah, okay, I'm not a great big fan of police, but I'm not saying they're all terrible. Yeah, okay, they've literally got like on their hats and everything, the black and white stripes. They're effectively an unlawful gang, you know, in reality. But you know, a lot of these guys, they go to these evictions. You know, they've seen people getting kicked out of their houses because they can't pay their bills, whether they're in the right or the wrong. These are the last people that are going to want to end up in that kind of situation. So what we have to remember is these are just people, you know, that are doing a job. We may not like it, and they may not like it either, but this is what they do. They can, and maybe they've got, I don't know, little Jimmy needs new football boots, and Emily wants to start ballet practice, and the wife needs a new hat. I don't know. It's like various things. And, you know, they still have a job whilst a lot of other people are struggling, especially throughout lockdown. So, and I think, yeah, a lot of people tend to, and I just see these protests, they're not necessarily, it's good for spreading awareness, but I just don't think we're getting an awful lot done with it, you know?
No, and it's like you say, it's, you know, developing something where people start getting a very good knowledge base of the systems we sit in, so they can utilize those systems to help themselves navigate through it. And there's ways. We're going to jump into the next song, and then we'll talk about that, because it's something that you want to do within education, isn't it? Get people really fully aware and educated around this. So if these systems do stay in place, which we hope they don't, but if they do stay in place, people then they can play in the system happily and utilize it for their benefit as well, like the higher echelons do.
Oh, well, absolutely. You know, it's just like you say, you know, they'll at least know how to make a few more moves on the chessboard that we're playing on, rather than just being like, okay, well, if I don't do as I'm told, I get punished, you know. Which
is not necessarily the case, because it's all agreement as well, isn't it? So Empire of the Sun, Walking on a Dream. I've never heard this one, I don't think. Why this one this morning?
I just think it's catchy. I like it.
Catchy tune from Ollie this morning. So if you wouldn't mind, Django, please, a bit of Walking on a Dream.
Sorry, I was Eurofair though. Either way.
All right, lovely. That's all right. We can talk. We're holding our breath then, like this. Can we say anything? But for those of you watching this on YouTube, Django's not at home at the moment, our producer, so he doesn't have his big flash kit in front of him with all his buttons. He's having to do stuff on a mouse on a laptop.
Yeah, I have to hold my microphone to my face too, so I have to pick it up once I'm done pressing buttons.
It's quite funny.
At least it sounds good on the outside. It's been quite solid so far.
Oh, that's all right then.
How are things in SA at the moment?
Quite seemingly kind of relaxed. I've been in a few places that aren't requiring masks or aren't enforcing the requirement of masks. The supermarkets still are the big chains. And unfortunately, I saw something from the 27th the other day that said that they're
He's clicking on his mouse. I can hear him. You've gone quiet, Django. Have you muted yourself? We'll just talk amongst ourselves until he comes back, Ollie.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Oh no, he's back. We lost you then, Django.
Oh.
I'm still here. Just
no,
so you know.
Ollie's gone again. Everyone keeps leaving me this morning.
I can hear you. I'm just going to make a coffee whilst we're in
It's
this.
your connection, Wendy. I think I was still here.
Oh, okay. I don't know about my connection. My connection's showing like full whack on the laptop.
Ah, strange.
No, I'm still here. I just turned my thing off.
It's just the video when you disappear. I'm just sat here for YouTube people staring at myself, talking to myself. Thanks, guys.
I still see Oliver on. Oh, his video is off. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks for caring and sharing this morning.
It's just you. You have to entertain everyone now.
Yeah, fine by me. I've got no like party tricks to touch. I can play with my ball. Kids would love this. Do you know what I use this for?
What?
So, sorry, I'm back on emotional arousal, right?
Oh boy.
It's not, I told you, it's like innuendo bingo with me. Right, no, I use this to show people how, if this is for stress management, but I've now just discovered another way to use it as well. So stress management, if you get a little bit stressed in the morning and you don't do something with it, your neurology starts doing this. I won't go into detail of the amygdala and stuff. And then something happens midday.
Sorry, I've got to cut you off. We're going to go back on air.
No, because I'm doing my ball. And then all of a sudden you explode. It can be used in many different ways.
Brilliant.
It's more for stress management. Manage your stress so you don't explode like
And you're live.
And welcome back to Kindasound this morning on the Reality Bite Show. And we're talking education and basically Ollie and his idea of a new system for schooling, which I think is absolutely amazing. This ties in as well with some friends of mine in London who've been working on something called the Passion Project for a long period of time. So, Ollie, what's your plan moving forward? What are you doing to move this forward? So it's sort of, I know it's all in your head at the moment, and
it's well, not largely networking, because actually this is not just, as you said, you know, this is it falls in line with something that a lot of your friends are doing in the UK, or some of your friends are doing in the Passion Project. There's also my mother told me about a friend of hers that's actively involved in starting something up in the sort of the Turkey, Cyprus area as well. I'm involved with a group in Greece that are trying to set that up here. So this is something that can definitely take root and perhaps even be kind of a, how do I put it, interconnected through different countries. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific to one, obviously. But moving forward, I think, I mean, for me, it's a time aspect, and I'm by no means the most qualified person to put this together. You know, there are people out there that have started putting together full curriculums. You know, the kind of school they would like to see. There are people out there that have been very proactive with it. I've saved a couple of things, but it's like, I don't know if your downloads section looks anything like mine. It's just a complete mishmash of things that you'd be like, oh, I like that, I'll have that. And then you look through it one day and you've got about 4 million files of very different things. But I do need to go through it. But yeah, ultimately, I want to start off with English. And I think, you know, for instance, teaching English with some of the parents, they've been interested in maybe doing things like poetry or obviously literature, and making it, perhaps giving it slightly more creative aspect, you know, so that everything's not quite so left brain. Yeah. Because I mean, I know for a fact when I was at school that if something interested me, I was more likely to learn it, which, you know, it's not a complicated thing, you know. I mean, if a child is interested, they listen. It's, you know, it's very straightforward. And I think we want to come out of that. I think if people were to organically start to think about how they would like to teach or learn, then we're already coming away from this very structured system of indoctrination, which is there specifically to put us in a mindset where if someone says, you know, did you see those numbers? That's not as dangerous as flu. And then, you know, somebody else says then, yeah, but the science says, you know, if we add this and multiply that by 3 and then divide that by 27,000, now you see, right? So those simple numbers over there, without all the complication around them, they're not correct. These are correct because they're impossible to understand. Do you see?
So it's basically putting things back into simple formats where people get to, I don't know, I suppose, follow a bit of their own guidance and start making decisions for themselves.
Basically, this is kind of, you know, this is what we want to promote. I mean, this has already begun because the people that are homeschooling, and I'm sure a lot of the people that aren't, you know, there's some smart, very smart people out there, smart kids, and I'm sure a lot of them are, a lot of the truther community that can't afford to homeschool are very proactive in making sure their children are aware of what it is that they're walking into every day, you know. And if not, then that's something they should think about doing, you know, because yeah, the kids may end up being different to the other kids. It's like I know kids that are dealing with that here, but it's I think the foundation of it really, and this is where we're going to see a whole different generation. You know, I mean, this is going to create a polarized generation as it is. You know, people are sort of moving in that direction already, and there's also a lot of people who are sort of part of this, which it is a cult, you know, like many other things at the moment. The medical cult, you know, trust the science has become like the prayer or the mantra.
Trust your brain and trust your immune system.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to education, I suppose me and my sister in a way were quite lucky. And I know my mum doesn't like me talking about her on here, but we had certain sayings which were, what do you think? And just that simple, when you asked a question and mum or dad would say back to you, well, what do you think? You know, so you make your own mind up. That was, I remember that one being said to me a lot, you know, make your own mind up on it. Don't do what they say you think you should be doing. What do you think? And just that, in a way, would be, you know, the stimulus of that, you would then put back within yourself to find a solution.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect way of developing your own internal education system, really.
Exactly. It's like there's a girl, I tell you this, she's actually pretty good to follow. And I don't know if her pages keep getting demolished. Her name's Naomi Seidt,
right?
A German girl. And you can find her online. She's referred to as the anti-Greta.
The anti-Greta.
Yeah.
Like my sister.
Well, is your sister like the anti-Greta or the Greta? But yeah, so basically she's referred to as the anti-Greta typically. But because she's very much against this whole global warming science cult, because it flows into that. And I think that's probably what we're going to start seeing focus on next, you know, the climate crisis, which,
without wandering in. Sorry, me and you were both a bit croaky this morning. Without wandering into that as well. I mean, they said, I think it was like 60 years ago, the sea levels are going to rise. The sea levels are still the same, they will be. So can we stop with that one now?
Yeah.
Can we just start moving forwards in life instead of keep running this old fear-mongering stuff, and just take self-responsibility for how much you use, how much rubbish you throw out. Don't throw things out your car windows when you're driving along. Drives me mental and insane.
Common sense.
Yeah, just a bit of common sense and a bit of self-responsibility, isn't it? Interesting. Jackie Rands has just put a comment in on Kindasound, and she said she's been speaking to a lot of homeschooling parents, and the suggestion is that if parents can't homeschool, maybe they go to one person's house. So someone who is homeschooling, have a few more of them round there. So you've got like mini groups. That's quite a nice little solution to start.
Well, this is something that's being discussed here as well. And I offered to help out with a group because sort of a prepper group. And they said, well, if they start bringing in a certain requirement in order to go to school, they're not going to be able to send their kids to school. Technically in Greece, that's actually illegal. Supposedly, it's not, but right. According to their constitution or whatever you want to refer to it. And I said, well, look, if that does happen, then I can help with English, for instance, And this is exactly how they were planning to do it. They would have a location. But it's crazy, though, because they would have to do this in secret, Like, this is where we're at.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? I have some friends of mine who live in the same village. They've homeschooled both of their children. And it's like they've always said to the children, if you ever want to go into mainstream education, we'll never stop you. Mm. However, these two kids have the best life. They really, really do. Like, I mean, all of it. Because they go to Diddy dance class. They go swimming. They go forestry school. They still do all the the maths that they want to do at home. They learn different languages, not because the parents go, you will learn this, but they ask them, what would you like to learn now? One of them was like, I want to learn some Spanish. Right, well, let's get Spanish, So, and I just think it's lovely because they're getting all the information they need, and they're in a happy, nurtured environment where they're sort of stress-free. Realistically, they still have certain timings throughout the day, but I mean, the parents obviously are both self-employed, so it makes a big difference, doesn't it? And they share the workload of what they do. But I think again, this comes back to, I mean, this is a community radio station. It comes back to community, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
What can we do in our communities now so we can help parents out who are really panicking with their kids in education and they want to get them out? How can we start working around this so we can actually help people still earn their living, but get their kids educated in a safer environment, a more nurturing environment?
Well, there's also the potential of an online presence, which is where I would be doing it, because I can't teach English kids face to face. But a lot of one of the parents said to me that a lot of the parents that she speaks to, and she's part of a number of groups. In fact, if anybody would like to contact me because they would like to maybe become a part of these groups, I'm more than happy. I'll ask her, but she's part of a number of groups, and they're all talking about how they can get around things. And I think a lot of them, they actually are homeschooling already, but they would like to have more online classes because they can kind of go and do the things that they need to do and know that their child is engaged in a class, and they can sort of like, they have that hour of the day where they can actually get some stuff done without having to sort of keep an eye out, and not to mention the fact that the child is with someone who they trust, and they know that they're going to be learning something that's going to be particularly useful. So yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it's like there's a lot to unpack with it. There are many ways that it can work, but it's going to largely, I think, my next step is to put together a list of questions, and my friend she's going to share it in the groups, and I'm going to try and get as much feedback as I can from the parents as to how they would like to see this, take form, what they would like to see being included in curriculum. Are there any particular areas that their kids would like to learn things in? Because with legal English, you can, and again, would they like that to be an optional extra, or is that something that should be considered a part of English? Personally, I think that if we start getting kids to see legal English as just something that they don't have to be experts in it, but if from a young age they start learning about what it means, it's always going to be there. And if they come into us, if they're in a situation where, and it's like the thing, I think the biggest thing for me is that when we say people are agreeing to things, it's not just that they're agreeing to them, they're unknowingly agreeing to them.
Yeah, I think it's the knowledge equals power, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I like that phrase because I always say as well, this sounds so cliche, but you don't know what you don't know, and if you don't know what you don't know, you can't act on it. Like that. So it is. I think this is what I'm going to say to anybody listening. Actually, Ollie, how can people contact you? Because I really like this, and I know that Jackie Rands, who put a comment in here, Jackie's a big advocate for all things helping sort kids and families out. So how can people contact you so we could start looking at these different community teaching environments?
What I would suggest is, what we can do is maybe can we pin like a post, and I'll put my Facebook ad. I'm on a 30-day ban at the moment. My first ever. I'm in the club now. My Facebook, Instagram, and that way, people can follow. They can direct message me if they want to.
That sounds like a plan. All right, then I'll make sure that that's done through here. Sort of.
Chances are we'll have mutual friends on Facebook.
Yeah, as well. And I'm sure this is another conversation to have with maybe a few of us as well, because the education, all the stuff that I do for a living, I teach people how to use their brain, how the human system works. And then I have two business partners, but one works in energy and mindset as well, and the other one is a naturopath. So again, teaching you about your body health, your cellular health. And I think all of these things, when you know how your mind works, how your body works, you can use creativity and critical thinking. I think we start building a different type of community then, don't we? Again,
absolutely. But there's one other thing as well before I forget. I started to notice when I was at university, because I mean, we'd go out and we'd have conversations with each other, obviously, and you'd have someone who was doing a master's in, say, biology, and then you'd have somebody else who was doing a master's in mathematics, and they were sitting there next to each other, and they couldn't have a conversation really about their subjects because they were so specialized in one area. And this again is a way of tunneling, sort of giving someone a tunnel view of what they've been taught, because they can talk to other people in their class, but the other people in their class don't have a different opinion to them. They have to regurgitate the same things that they do, so they can all just bounce off each other. It becomes an echo chamber of what they want to be taught. But I think that a lot of subjects do actually directly affect other subjects. So it's like, for instance, socioeconomics, sociology and economics, And this was Schumpeter who basically coined mixing the two together as socio-economics. And I think that this is something, instead of having this very specific, if you're going to learn one thing, then you can't really learn areas of other things, because this, again, you end up with our educated people just only being specialized in one area.
With not having, it's having a balanced view, isn't it? This is what I find with, I suppose, some of the psychology people I meet. They've got such a blinkered view of something that when I talk about certain subjects with how I'd work with PTSD and trauma, and they're like, well, that doesn't work with the Freudian model. And it's like, no, because that's a very old model and time has moved on, and you have to consider all of these other factors that we now know about.
I've never gotten the Freudian model. I've never agreed with it.
That's a whole nother radio show, that one. Later.
Fancy your mum, don't you? You fancy, that's what it is. Yeah. And you want to kill your father. Yeah, because you fancy your mum. Right, really? I had no idea. Thank you for telling me. I really appreciate that. It's just like, what?
Yeah, it's very interesting. What we now know about, the thoughts, energy, they wandering into the quantum realm of energy has really started unpacking the human system, really, because we now know that we're interacting with everything at all times throughout the day. And that gets really fast. That's why I'd love to teach that to kids. If they knew that every thought they were thinking, is having an interaction around them and bringing stuff towards them, what would they be thinking about? we'd probably have pink clouds and stuff because there'd be so many of them like generating different outcomes.
Oh, it's painful to think about where we'd be if kids, or if education was actually for our betterment and not control.
Yeah, well, the control thing, it was interesting, just to finish this on, because we've just got a few more minutes. Django's squeezed us a little bit of extra time. You were saying, the school is no place for kids really nowadays, and I will sort of agree with that. I was doing a knife crime and gang culture day a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting because how me and one of my colleagues teach children, we don't teach them. It's like we said to them when they turned up, and we have a certain amount per group. We said to them as soon as they walk in, we're not here to teach you anything. We're here to have a conversation with you about experiences and stuff that happens so you can make your own decisions. And it was interesting how the day went then, because we let them laugh and joke with each other. We weren't going shush, stop, pay attention. We just said to them, you show us a bit of respect, we'll show you some. It's as simple as that. So, and it was a lovely day because we had all the kids that are right on the cusp of going into gangs, which are a handful in school, but we had no problems with any of them. It was just open dialogue and allowing them to be kids in that environment. And it was just such a lovely way of doing things because, they started off calling you miss and sir. And I said to them, each one of you that calls me miss, because it's not my name's Wendy. I'm going to give you a detention if you call me miss, because I'm going to show you how indoctrinated you are. And then they'd go to ask a question, they'd go, miss, I'll go, detention. Oh, Wendy, sorry. And it'd be like, guys, wake up to how indoctrinated you are into doing stuff over and over again because you've been taught it. Follow the bell all the time.
Do you know what one of my teachers demanded we call him?
What?
Master.
Seriously,
Master Clark. Yeah, no joke. We had to call him, that's what we say, Master Clark. That's what we used to call him.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's all I can say. I meet so many teachers that are, they're amazing people. They really are. And they also have been stuck into a system that is just squashing the living daylights out of everybody from the top down. And I do agree, it's time for some change. So let's get our heads together with the community stuff. I'm going to share you all over the place. And let's see where you go with this in the future, Ollie. So I just want to say thank you for joining me again this morning. I'm quite sure we actually covered the subject we were meant to cover for a change, which is quite good. And thank you to all the Kindasound listeners as well, and Django for doing his usual wonderful job out there in South Africa. And I think we're going to play out with Electric Feel by MGMT, if you wouldn't mind, please, Django.
Cool, you're off air.
Wonderful. We both sit here staring at the screen. So, Ollie, do you know your Instagram?
Instagram, yes, it is. I'll put it in the chat.
If you speak it out as well, because this will go on YouTube. So
okay, so it's Ollie_J_V.
And that's it for Instagram, yeah?
Yeah.
And then it's Vinnicombe Oliver on Facebook.
Yeah.
See, I know that. That's why I kept calling you Vinny the first time we did a show, because you've got your name asked about face.
That's happened a lot, yeah. But that's how I put it on Facebook. There's no way you could have known. But I think I don't know. I'm not even sure why I did that. It's just like have a little more anonymity.